Well, the RBA handing down its September cash rate decision in the next 30 seconds. Let's bring in our business reporter, Edward Boyd. Ed, rates expected to remain on hold. This is at the 12-year high of 4.35%. The big watch will be after in this afternoon. Any hints around confidence that cuts are actually coming?
Yeah, look, we know Governor Michelle Bullock has been pretty hawkish in her tone over the past few RBA board meetings. Remember, they only meet 8 times a year now as opposed to 11 in previous years. And there is now a press conference, quite a long press conference after every decision. We'll have that live on Sky at 3:30. Really, there's been a bit of pressure mounting on the Reserve Bank to cut interest rates when you look at other central banks around the world, which have already begun cutting, including the US Federal Reserve, which cut last week. So the decision has just been handed down, and rates, as expected, are on hold again at 4.35%. This is the 7th meeting in a row where rates have remained on hold from the Reserve Bank of Australia. I'm just bringing up the statement by the Reserve Bank board here. They left the cash rate unchanged at 4.35%. Inflation remains above target and is proving persistent. It has fallen substantially since the peak in 2022, but inflation is still some way above the midpoint of that 2 to 3% target range that the Reserve Bank is aiming for. The RBA says the economic outlook remains highly uncertain. That's obviously been ongoing since the pandemic kicked off in 2020. Returning inflation to target is the Reserve Bank's priority. It's obviously their mandate is also for price stability and for full employment. And obviously we just saw last week the unemployment numbers come in much stronger than expected, with almost 48,000 jobs created during the month of August. You can see here the cash rate was 0.1% during the pandemic. It's now been lifted to 4.35, which is a 12-year high, and in December it will click over to a 13-year high if rates remain at that level. The last line of the statement from the RBA board is always the one to read. It says, the board will continue to rely upon the data and the evolving assessment of risks to guide its decisions. In doing so, it will pay close attention to developments in the global economy and financial markets, trends in domestic demand, and the outlook for inflation and the labour market. The board remains resolute in its determination to return inflation to target and will do what is necessary to achieve that outcome. Look, just reading that last line there, Tom, I need to check previous statements, but the word public demand is in there, and I'm not sure if that was in previous statements from the Reserve Bank board. Obviously, we saw in the June quarter, the GDP, the one thing that really kept GDP from falling into negative territory was public demand, which is basically government spending, both federal and state government spending. We're seeing that at a record high in the June quarter. It's something that the Governor, Michelle Bullock of the Reserve Bank, has been asked about in parliamentary hearings, and she has sort of brushed off questions so far. I imagine at the press conference today, that's going to come up again, whether the high elevated level of government spending that we've been seeing. There's still a lot of spending going on infrastructure from governments. We're also seeing, obviously, energy rebates, $300 to every Aussie household and small business is being given out over this current financial year. And then, obviously, up in Queensland, government spending is even more elevated with this upcoming election next month. We've got $1,000 in energy rebates there, plus very cheap public transport. So there is the fear here. Some economists have mentioned it, Tom, that the high level of public spending in Australia is one of the reasons why interest rates do need to remain elevated. So reading through this announcement here from the RBA board, it's pretty clear that rates are going to be on hold for quite a long period of time. We know Commonwealth Bank still thinks rates will be cut in December, but most other economists believe it's not going to be until next year, 2025, and some, like HSBC, I believe, don't expect rates to fall until at least May 2025. So rate cuts in Australia are still looking a long way off. Quickly reading through this statement that the RBA board has just handed down.